How's it going, everyone? We have a fantastic volume for you. Let's kick it off. We're discussing players you should fade in a fantasy football draft and let your lead mates make that mistake in drafting them unless they fall to you around later or even further for a great value. So here we go. First up, Rashard White, running back, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He goes off in the fourth round, and he had one of the most inefficient running seasons. They drafted a running back who should be better. His whole value is in catching passes. So if you're not in a full PPR, I would definitely pass on Rashard White. Next, Stephon Diggs, wide receiver, Houston Texans. He's also going in the fourth round. And if you've been following him, the last 2 years, he has fallen off a cliff the last 4+ games of the season. Now he's going to an even more crowded room where he will demand the ball, but he's just not that talented as age has caught up. So pass on Stephon Diggs. Finally, Kyle Pitts, tight end, Atlanta Falcons, sixth round. There's just so many other tight ends you can get. I get it. He might pop off and give you tight end number one, but I recommend going with Evan Ingram. I mean, even Jake Ferguson, you can get 3 rounds later. There's just so much talent at the wide receiver or the running back position in that round.
The three guys I am fading in fantasy football this year might surprise you. It is a trio of 49ers. We got wide receiver number 9, Deebo Samuel, wide receiver number 12, Brandon Ayuk, and tight end number 5, George Kittle. The reasons that for all of them is the fact that there's just too many mouths to feed. They're going to be too up and down. I prefer some sort of consistency. You have all three of them, plus Christian McCaffrey. You got Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. Brock Purdy is going to be distributing that. And I just don't like having to guess week in, week out who's going to have the best game. Hey, they're all talented. This isn't a talent issue. This is just strictly fantasy football. Brandon Ayuk's been in his contract dispute. He averages low targets last year. Deebo Samuel's got injury concerns. And George Kittle, he's 30 years old, entering his 8th season in the league. I just don't like those guys.
Nice calls, Jordan. I'm fading Josh Allen in the second round. The Bills wide receiver room is not as good as it was last season, and I don't think Allen will rush for 15 touchdowns again. I wouldn't take any quarterback this year in the top 2 rounds. There's a lot of values later on. Next, Travis Kelce in the late second to early third round range is a big fade for me. The Chiefs receiver room has gotten more crowded, and I think there are better values on tight end later on, like Andrews, Kincaid, and McBride. And I think that they will all have better seasons than Kelce this year. Next, we have CJ Stroud in the fourth round. I love CJ Stroud in real life and as a player, but in fantasy, he's being drafted near his ceiling as he does not have the elite rushing upside that's needed to dominate at the quarterback position in fantasy. I'd rather bulk up on running backs and wide receivers in those middle rounds and wait and draft a guy like Kirk Cousins or Aaron Rodgers later on in the draft.
In our fantasy football debate for this week, we are debating Tank Dell and Zay Flowers. Who are you going to take? I'm taking Tank Dell. He's established great chemistry with CJ Stroud last season, averaging 2.36 yards per route run and 14.3 average depth of target. Can you say big plays? That's what I like. He finished as wide receiver number 18 in his rookie year. The sky is the limit for this guy.
Solid points, Josh, but I'm still taking Zay Flowers over Tank Dell this season in redraft fantasy football, and that is because Zay Flowers is most likely to be the number 1 wide receiver on his team in what projects to be a very good offense out in Baltimore. I know the Texans are going to be a great offense, but we don't know if Tank Dell is going to be the number 2 or number 3 guy in terms of target share in that offense with Stephon Diggs coming on board. There's a lot more competition for targets, and I think Zay Flowers is going to have that huge second-year bump where he could put up 1,200 yards this year, and it wouldn't shock me. I definitely see him putting up more big plays and more touchdowns and seeing more of the Zay Flowers that we saw in the playoffs, minus the taunting call, and he is definitely in for a good year.
Excuse me, sir. Would you like another hot take?
Yeah, definitely. Keep them coming.
Okay, let's go ahead and jump into our hot takes. We're going to do some predictions for the MLB along with the Olympics. First up, in the MLB, I believe the Royals, the Boston Red Sox, and the New York Yankees will win the wild card spots. I get it. That puts 3 teams making it in the AL East, but those teams are just so good, and I think the Royals are being slept on, and they will make it. Next in the NL, I believe the Padres, the Mets, and the Pirates will push for that last playoff spot and get it. So those are your NL wildcard teams. Finally, with all the other sports that are finally making it to the Olympics, I believe that poker should be an Olympic sport. Specifically, let's do heads up poker. That's where I think you do 2 out of 3, and it could really be a good competition to compete and show what poker is to the globe.
Thanks, Josh. We're getting into Olympic soccer with my hot takes. On the men's side of thing, this is a under 23 tournament with the exception of 3 players can be any age. I'm taking Spain to beat the host nation, France. I know France is going to have all of their fans there, all the fans rallying behind them, but Spain is going to take this. They're going to have the Euro locked up. They're going to have the Olympics locked up, all within 1 month of each other. On the women's side, there's no age cap. Stars everywhere. And that is why the United States women's national team is going to take gold in the women's tournament. Emma Hayes has this team on the right track. Their attack is insane. Their midfield's playing well. The defense is good. Let's face it, United States women's national team is the most talented women's team in the world, and they are going to take the gold medal. What you got, Jacob?
Nice points, Jordan. My hot take for the week is that the Steelers are a good bet to win the AFC North at plus 800 odds. I think the Steelers may have the best defense in the whole NFL this season. They are loaded on that side of the ball, led by TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick. On offense, they improve at the QB position over Kenny Pickett. And if Justin Fields finally puts it together, I think they could really be good enough on offense to grind out some games and win a lot of close ones this season. They definitely aren't the favorites, but I think they're certainly capable of winning the AFC North. And at plus 800 odds, that's a pretty good, enticing odds to take the gamble. But that's just my opinion.
My hot take this week is I do not believe that the Bears did enough with this draft in order to be sustainable for the next 5 years. And here's why. Caleb Williams and Ajunze are fantastic players. Any team would be happy to have one of those players. However, the Bears consistently show an inability to develop players. And while you have the first-round draft pick and a remarkable college talent, there is still a jump from college to the NFL. And those players need to be supported and developed properly. And the Bears have consistently showed an inability to do that. So for that reason, I don't think that they're going to be sustainable for the next 5 years. They definitely have pieces around them, but until they can show me that they can develop these players, I'm not a believer.
My take for this week is that Bobby Witt Jr. deserves to be considered for the AL MVP. Aaron Judge is considered the heavy favorite by sportsbooks, and at first glance it is easy to see why. Judge is having a historic season at the plate, leading the league with 41 home runs and a ridiculous 103 RBIs. And since MVP voters generally only consider offensive categories when voting, Judge will likely run away with his second MVP award in the last 3 seasons. But Bobby Witt has a much stronger case when base running and fielding are considered. That's because Witt has the second most defensive runs saved of any MLB player this season, according to Baseball Savant, with 13. Comparatively, Judge has cost his team 3 runs in the field and is a below-average base runner. Meanwhile, Witt has lit up the base paths this year by stealing 25 bags and adding a league-leading 94 runs scored. Witt has also accumulated 7.2 B-WAR, which is only 0.4 behind Aaron Judge, who leads the league with 7.6. Judge will likely take home the MVP, but Witt certainly deserves consideration.
In this poker hand, we were playing 1-2-5. One player limped to me, and I made it 25 to go in the cutoff with King 10 of hearts. The button, small blind, and limper all made the call. The flop came Jack of spades, 5 of hearts, and 4 of hearts. So we flop a pretty good flush draw, second nut flush draw here. It checks to me, and I bet $70. The button folds, and now the small blind jams all in for 174. It folds back to me, and for this price, I have no choice but to make the call. I'm getting really good odds at this point to make my flush. If he had like 500 or 600 in jammed, I think it would be a snap fold. But here I have no choice. I make the call, and unfortunately, we brick this time and lose the pot. Nice hand, nice hand. In this poker hand, I had pocket 10s in the straddle. Action folded to the small blind, who made it $20. The big blind made the call, and I 3-bet to $100. And here, surprisingly, both players make the call, so we built up a pretty nice pot in position with a solid hand. But unfortunately, this time the flop comes queen 4-5, a rainbow. The small blind checks, and now the big blind jams all in for 340 or so. At this point, in between here, I have no choice but to fold. If the small blind's trapping, I don't want to call here with second pair, so I make the fold. The small blind folds as well, and the big blind proudly turns over queen 7 of diamonds and takes down a nice pot.
Okay, few poker hands from Texas Card House Social. I look down at pocket fours on gun +2, and I limp to set mine, knowing that a player behind me will raise. The low jack does that, and he makes it $20, and 5 players call, so let's go ahead and go to the flop. The flop is a 4 of hearts, the 8 of clubs, and the king of diamonds. I check, and checks the original raiser, who makes it 35, and only the cutoff and myself calls, and I'm a little bit worried because the cutoff is a very snug player. The turn is the ace of spades. Now it checks through. The river is the 9 of clubs. I check, and now the low jack bets $75. Now, the cutoff min raises to 150. Alarm bells are going off, but I do have a set, so I make the call, and the low jack folds. I show my set, and the cutoff had a set of 8s for the win. I'm glad alarm bells are going off, and I only flat it there on the river. Okay, still playing 1-2 at TCH Social, and I look down at Ace Queen of Hearts on the button, and I race to 17. We get 4 callers, so let's go ahead and go to the flop. The flop is the 3 of Hearts, the 7 of Spades, and the 10 of Spades. It checks to me, and I know this board favors all the callers, so I check. The turn is the King of Hearts. Checks to the low jack, who now bets for 50. I call with straight, flush draw, straight flush draw, and over, and so does one other player. The river is the 2 of hearts. It checks to the low jack, who now bets 125. I don't have much left, so I go in for 247, and the big blind folds, and the low jack calls, showing that they flopped a set of 7s, and they told me they thought I would c-bet so they could raise, and I scoop with my flush.
Soccer hooligans.
Welcome back to another edition of the Added Minutes with your boy Jordan Olympics. That's right, not tennis today, Olympics, because we are going to be covering the USA Olympic progress, which is going phenomenal, by the way. They are absolutely crushing the medal count, total medal count, I should say. They are right now, at the time of this recording, tied for goals with China. But, you know, I'm expecting to add plenty more golds by the time this is all said and done. And I expect Team USA is expecting the same thing. So we will see how they do. Let's get into some of the sports. Simone Biles has been absolutely dominant. I mean, she is the gymnastics GOAT. She is one of the best Olympians of all time. She took another gold medal in the women's all-around, which is insane. It's insane because she could be the greatest Olympian of all time. I know a lot of people put Michael Phelps up there, but in my opinion, Simone Biles, she's right there. And she could come back in 4 years and continue to dominate. Let's hope, because she has been a pleasure to watch. Women's cycling has ended a 40-year gold medal drought. The last time a gold medal was won in a road race was in 1984. So congrats to Kristen Faulkner for ending that long drought. More droughts being ended in the USA men's rowing. A 64-year gold medal drought in fours rowing. So the four-man, they have ended a 64-year drought, which is insane to think about. This is the last time they won gold in this event. They've done it again this time. And probably the event of the Olympics this year was the men's 100 meters. And this was one of the greatest 100-meter races I've ever personally seen. Granted, I don't watch too much outside of the Olympics. You see the World Championships and stuff like that. But Noah Lyles, he took home gold for the USA, edging out Kishane Thompson of Jamaica just barely. The times, Noah Lyles was 9.784 seconds in second place, 9.789. So it was that close, but Noah Lyles gets it done. Third place, Fred Curley of the USA at 9.81. Just to give you an idea of how close this race was, eighth place was 9.91 seconds. So it is just insane. You have first place at 9.784 and last place at 9.91. Everybody was right there. This was the most exciting 100 meters I've ever watched. If you guys didn't see it, you need to go and watch a replay of this. I hope you guys have been enjoying the Olympics as much as I have. We'll catch you next week.
Brent Joyce of the Los Angeles Angels is a player you should be adding to your fantasy baseball rosters this week. Joyce is owned in only 38% of leagues, and he will add value to your roster due to his improved role in the Angels bullpen. That is because the Angels traded closer Carlos Estevez and setup man Luis Garcia at the deadline, and the Angels have now turned Joyce into a high-leverage 8th and 9th inning pitcher. This new role should allow Joyce to collect holds and saves while lowering your ratios. Joyce will also provide strikeouts as he features the fastest four-seamer in the league, which sits between 101 and 105 miles per hour. He combines his four-seamer with a nasty 97-mile-per-hour splitter that has sinking action. Overall, Joyce has thrown 23 consecutive scoreless innings across 18 appearances since June 14th. His production, combined with his improved bullpen role, makes him a must-add for your team. Jose Butto of the New York Mets is an intriguing player that fantasy baseball managers should consider adding to their rosters this week. Butto is owned in only 11% of leagues and has carved out a productive role in the Mets bullpen since being recalled from AAA on July the 2nd. Butto is a former starter who generally pitches multiple innings out of the pen. Since returning to the majors, Butto has posted 3 wins, 2 saves, 2 holds, along with a .96 ERA and a .99 WHIP. And he has 22 strikeouts across 18 2/3 innings pitched. If your team is in need of bullpen arms, Butto might be a guy that you take a look at.
We want to take this time to thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end. If you haven't yet, please hit that like, leave a comment, or subscribe. We will be in Vegas August 20th through 24th, and we're planning on having 2 meetup games. One will be a fantasy football draft and meetup game on August 23rd at Mandalay Bay. The House of Blues is where we're going to have the fantasy draft, and then we'll play poker afterwards. Also, check out our website, get some for yourself or for someone you care about, and we'll talk to you guys next week.